if you're a B2B like consultant or agency or service provider, you probably see a lot of ads that say things like, you need to launch paid ads, you need to run ads, or you'll never scale your business. And so, while I'm not necessarily opposed to those ideas, when is the best time to do it? Is it right away? Is it after you get one client? Is it after you get 100 clients? In this video, I want to go over when is the best time to start a paid advertising campaign in your services B2B style business. So let's get into it. Okay, so paid advertising. Let's define it really quick. What's paid advertising? Because a lot of times in the marketing world, we kind of mishmash what all this stuff sort of means. So in marketing, you have lots of little subcategories of things. One of the things is advertising. And advertising, specifically paid advertising, is any time you pay to put an advertorial promoting your business in front of somebody. So this could be everything from a radio ad to a billboard to a social media ad. In our context, we're typically going to talk about social media advertising, especially when it comes to small businesses, because it's the most cost-effective channel that you can put out there, right? So that's where I'm going to kind of stay focused. And if you're a B2B service provider or consultant or agency, social media marketer, even a freelancer, this is going to be specifically for you so that you know when is the best time to launch your own paid advertising campaign and how to do it. So the first thing you want to make sure when you're thinking about starting a paid advertising campaign is you want to make sure you actually have capacity or bandwidth for more clients. I think this is often an ignored factor, especially if you're kind of just starting out and you're like, I'll take any work I can get, right? And then you don't realize that if maybe you had all the clients you wanted, maybe you would reach a bottleneck and you wouldn't be able to handle it. So I think when you're thinking about putting together a paid advertising campaign, you want to make sure you have things like systems or staff or team members so that you know what your capacity is for bringing on more clients. If you only need one client, a paid advertising campaign is probably not the best channel for you, and you're probably not ready for it, or maybe you don't even need it in your business right now. So that's kind of the first thing to think about is if you're thinking about starting a paid advertising campaign is, do you actually have the capacity to bring on more clients? And if not, what do you need to put in the business? Do you need team, standard operating procedures? Do you need more results maybe, right? Do you need more hours in the day? Because there's only so many, right? So think about if you have capacity and try to determine what that actual capacity is. If you're looking for 2 clients or 20 clients or 200 clients, you're going to have a different kind of strategy for those different outcomes. All right, number 2, when you're thinking about starting a paid advertising campaign, is you want to make sure that the methodology that you're selling or that your service is really as refined as possible. Now, there's going to be some things you can only learn from experience, but you want to make sure what you're selling actually works for people. Typically, when you're starting a new offer or a new business, especially in the services space or the B2B space, you're kind of testing it out, right? Like you're putting it out there, you're having a few people test it. Maybe it's people in your direct network. You're seeing if they get results. And then if you do, you may think about scaling that specific part of the business or that specific offer. And so I typically would advise people to ensure you've kind of battle tested it on at least a handful of clients and that you've worked through any potential kinks, like any sort of challenges. What do you do when things don't work out immediately? And what do you do when a client is taking too long? If you're let's say a social media manager and you're like, hey, I sent my client their brief and they haven't responded to me in 3 weeks. What methodologies and what systems do you need to build in order to ensure that you're delivering on the promises you made to that client? So I think making sure the method works is a super important thing when you are thinking about running an ad campaign. Because anytime you advertise, and you can ask any business owner who advertises, you're going to get weird comments and weird messages and weird emails, especially if you're in anything, I would say, marketing, whether social media marketing or copywriting, or maybe you're an ads manager. You probably already know this, that people are going to like be a little skeptical, I would say, of any sort of business that's advertising, because I think they are like, well, if your methodology or your processes work so well, why are you advertising for it? I mean, it's a pretty self-evident question, but to some people, especially like people who are newer to business, they're uncertain. And to people who are newer to advertising or marketing or whatever your service is, they may not fully understand it. So making sure your methodology is working well before you go to market with it. All right, number 3. Make sure you have budget. Make sure you have an actual budget for advertising. So what does that mean? Because a lot of people are like, well, it takes money to make money. And that's true. It does. And so I think when you're setting your expectations for yourself, realize that investing in things like advertising is very much taking one step backwards so that you can take 2 steps forward. And it's going to be an iterative process. It's going to take you some time. I think this is why when people see advertising campaigns and get something that's working, they kind of like push the gas on it. And I advise that. I think you really should. But for you, realizing, okay, well, what do I have budget and capacity for, and what is my timeline? One of my last advertising campaigns that we built, it took us like 4 iterations to get it correct, and probably like 6 months to get it really humming and high. Like, that's a lot of time, which is a type of resource. It also costs a lot of money, like probably thousands of dollars just to validate and get something to work. Not for it to be like an ROI positive, just to get it to work. And so I'm not saying this to discourage you from advertising. It's actually the opposite. It's so that you have appropriate expectations when you're building out an advertising campaign, especially if you're a small business and you want it to be kind of what we would call a direct response campaign, which means you are mostly focused on the people who are directly thinking about engaging and hiring you, inside of 14 days. Not the people who are going to need 1 million follow-ups, not people who are going to hire you in a year. Those are all secondary and tertiary benefits. But what's going to keep you going is if you spend $10,000 on ads, you need to make at least $10,000 back within like a month or so, right? And so thinking about how much bandwidth and kind of like money and budget do you have to dip into something just to get it to work? If you don't know where to start and you're kind of a B2B services person, like an agency, a consultant, a coach, something like that, the typical range I would give for testing something out is, depending on the platform, it really matters. But for most people, we typically would advise like Meta ads, which is Facebook and Instagram. Just because you're going to get really fast results, you can get away with a very low budget. And so it's both the lowest budget, but also gives you immediate feedback. And I would say if you don't have a budget, you want to make sure you at least have it, I would say the minimum of $1,500 per month budget to test on those platforms. And that's just on the actual, what we would call media buy, which means that's the money that goes to Meta, Facebook, Instagram. And it's the same for any platform, right? If you're using TikTok ads, that's the money that goes to TikTok, or YouTube and Google, that's the money that goes to Google. So thinking about, do you have the $1,500 it's going to take just to run and test the ads? Because you're going to have to find out, is your copy converting? Is the ad converting? Is the funnel working, right? There's lots of little like micro conversions along the path that you have to optimize for. So making sure you have budget for that, but then also making sure you have budget for anything else you need to run those campaigns. Sometimes when people are like running ads, right, they'll hire somebody who's like does it on the cheap. Maybe it's the first time they've ever done it, or maybe they're like an overseas freelancer or virtual assistant, and they'll do it for like a couple $100 a month. That's also money you need to budget for, right? So if you're hiring, whether it's a freelance media buyer or a highly skilled media buyer, that's money you need to budget for as well, right? You also have to think about, do you need to build like a funnel? A funnel is like the web page that is going to kind of guide your prospective customer to, buying your services, whether it's through booking a meeting, which is pretty typical, or through buying a low barrier offer. There's a lot of little things that cost money and time that you need to think about. So thinking about where your budget is going to help inform if you're ready to start a paid advertising campaign and if you've ever done it before. There's a lot of services out there who will teach you and advise you on how to run your own ads, but even those things can cost $10,000 to $20,000 to get the support. So thinking about, okay, do I have resources and bandwidth and emotional and mental resilience to do this? And it's not to disparage you. It's so that you're emotionally prepared, because launching a paid advertising campaign that is cash flow positive is very much creating fire. It's creating fire. And so expecting fire to be made like that for little effort, for little money, is, I think, unreasonable. And I think you would probably agree. So if you're just starting, budget yourself, and you're running all the stuff yourself, budget yourself at least $1,500 a month. More is better, because you'll get a better, you'll get faster data. More data helps you make informed decisions quicker. So budget that, and then whatever else it's going to take to actually build your marketing and advertising funnel and assets and tools, whether it's educational resources or videos or copywriters or all those other things. Think about if you have that to start and if you have it to maintain long term. And that's going to help inform when you're ready to do that. Next, number 4 is when you're thinking about launching a paid advertising campaign. This kind of goes to my second thing with making sure your methodology works, but is having actual case studies and testimonials from past or current clients. Now, why am I making this its own step? When you're launching advertising campaigns, one of the things that are going to get people to take swift and intentional action are seeing competence, showed competence in your field of expertise. And so one of the easiest ways to do that is to just show testimonials and case studies. This shows your prospective customers that, one, you've done this for other people successfully. They're not your first client. And 2, that other people are hiring you. So it creates almost a little bit of a I'm not a guinea pig situation. So I think having those testimonials helps relax or assuage nervousness from prospective customers, especially people who you want to enroll on a shorter timeline. If you're selling something like social media management and it's $1,000 to $3,000 a month, it's pretty inexpensive for a small business. You don't need a million calls. But you probably do need some case studies or testimonials so that they're oh, yeah, Timmy, he really knows how to do social media marketing for chiropractic firms. Look, he has 2 case studies here of other chiropractic firms that I can Google. Okay, I want to hire them. So it's just going to make your advertising a lot easier, as well as it gives you materials to put in an advertising campaign to try to make it as cash flow positive as possible. I'm of the opinion that the more testimonials and case studies, the better. I know it can feel like overkill, but this was something the first time I had scaled a large advertising campaign for one of my own businesses that I had gotten as really positive feedback. When our sales reps would get calls with prospective customers, the thing that they would say over and over and over again is, there's just so many testimonials. There's no arguing that this doesn't work, right? It reached this point of I can't even I'm trying to be a skeptic, or I'm trying to doubt your company or you as a person, but there's so much overwhelming evidence to the contrary that I'm just okay, I have to take a look at what this looks like. So you kind of want to make it as irresistible and as obvious as possible. And so even though some people think it's a little tacky to have lots and lots of testimonials. I think all it does is it's effectively the same as going like to Amazon and seeing something with 1,000 5-star reviews. Like that doesn't make you not want to buy something. It just lets you know that a lot of other people like this product. So I'm an advocate for getting as many testimonials and case studies. Though if you're a new business and you're like, well, AJ, I don't have 100 testimonials, should I not run ads? I would say even just having 1 or 2 is enough to make things like work. Okay, and then number 5, and maybe the most important and the reason you're here, is investing in the right platform and the right strategy. So I'm going to break this part into 2 sections because I think both sections are super important for you to know about if you're thinking about launching a paid advertising campaign. So let's talk first about platform because that's the faster one. So when it comes to platforms for advertising, we've mentioned some of the ones that are like the most popular for launching a new paid advertising campaign for your business. I'm going to list the ones that are most common and then the ones that are not as common but may be viable options for you. So the first ones when it comes to social media advertising is typically meta ads like Facebook or Instagram. That's going to be like 90% of the time, that's probably the first place you should go. There are exceptions to it depending on the like industry you're in, but more often than not, that's like the best bang for your buck. In terms of like, it doesn't require a crazy budget. It's very fast to get like data and make informed decisions, right? It's very fast to get results, and it also can scale pretty high, like before you really hit a bottleneck. So I think there's a lot of benefits to Facebook and Instagram ads. When you're thinking about like what platform you want to use, you do want to think about like what you sell and who's your ideal customer and where do they hang out. So if you're somebody who sells like, I don't know, like water bottles for Gen Z, trendy Stanleys, right? Something like that, right? Something very trendy. You may think that the best channels for them is, well, where does Gen Z hang out? Gen Z may hang out on TikTok. They may hang out on Instagram, right? They may hang out on Amazon. I don't know. But you want to think about where your ideal client already goes if you're going to do a social media advertising campaign. If your product is for Gen Z and you're going to market it on Facebook, maybe that's not the best place for them. Maybe there's not enough Gen Z on there, or maybe Gen A. Maybe your product's for an even younger generation. You're like, they definitely don't use Facebook. Or maybe it's the inverse. Maybe you're trying to market to an older demographic of, let's say, the baby boomer generation, and you're only marketing on like TikTok. And we're finding that there's less of them on there. Or that maybe they're on there, but they're less likely to respond to advertising. So being really intentional and not just thinking, oh, this social media platform is going to cure everything, but thinking about picking the right platform for the right like business and the right offer. In most cases, Facebook/Instagram is an okay place for you to start. I would say the exception to this is if you're somebody who is either in a highly searchable industry. So an example of like a highly searchable industry would be something like a plumber, right? Which is not necessarily a B2B business, but we'll address it because maybe you're watching this and you're a plumber. Plumbers, right, is a highly searchable type thing. When your toilet stops working, you Google plumber near me, right? Plumber, your town. And so finding out what the search volume for that is where you live may be the more cost-effective strategy for you versus like Meta or Facebook ads where like you can put that you're a plumber in people's face all day, but unless their toilet's broken, they're not going to call you, right? So knowing where it makes the most sense is a good thing for you. Or maybe you're a video editing company, and so it makes sense for you to be on video platforms. So maybe a YouTube ad makes the most sense for you. Maybe a TikTok ad makes the most sense for you because you already know the person consuming it is somebody likely to be interested in video, at least enough to consume the style of content. So I don't want you to overthink this that much, but I do want you to think about it. So like set a timer for like an hour or 30 minutes and spend that time researching if your ideal customer is on the platform you're thinking about, if there's enough volume there, if your like town has enough volume. Let's say you're a location-based business. So if you're like a national business, you may think, okay, I just want to be able to scale. Then any one of those likely can work. It's just a matter of who is like what is the right platform for you, and what is right for your client. Really think about it from your client's perspective, and if or your potential client, and if they're consuming where you're thinking about advertising. So that is platform. Okay, once you've picked one platform to test to start with, you're then going to determine a strategy. So I'm going to pretend we're in a Meta is our platform, Facebook/Instagram, which I know sounds like two, but it's kind of one. If you go into the ads manager, you'll see you can actually manage both of those ad platforms pretty seamlessly, like together. It's not as disjointed as like Google and YouTube is, for instance, where it's technically all together, but it's two very different strategies. Okay, so let's say you are a social media manager, and your goal is to get clients so that you can do social tiles and video editing and things like that for their brand. And you want to work with restaurants. And so you've decided to choose like Facebook and Instagram to market your business. Great. Now you have to determine what strategy are you going to utilize to generate new customers. So the first thing you have to determine is, what kind of thing do you sell? Do you sell a high ticket thing, meaning like a service or a productized service that is, in the thousands of dollars? Or do you sell a low ticket service like a $20 ebook or something like that? Because those are two very different things with two very different strategies attached to them. And I would typically say the higher ticket thing is easier to get right, especially if it's your first go, than the low ticket thing. I know it sounds nice to just have this low ticket thing that just makes you money while you sleep, just like all the, gurus say, and just like I saw on that coffee shop millionaire ad 20 years ago or whatever it may be. But there's a reason those stories are so few and far between. There's less margin, and so it's harder to make it work. That's not to disparage you. That's not to like poo-poo on your dreams. You can make that work. It's just they're two very different strategies. So if you're selling something lower ticket, you're going to need what we call sales funnel or a marketing funnel to actually do the selling for you. So what does that mean? That means creating a series of web pages that talk about your product, talk about the value, talk about why it is the right solution for your ideal customer, and also allows them to buy it straight away on the website. And you can see why that is sometimes harder to get to work, because people are skeptical to buy things from strangers online, right? Rightfully so, especially if they've never even talked to someone and if it's a brand they've never heard of before. But if you're somebody who is selling low ticket, you will need a sales funnel that can sell for you. And you may also need what we call order bumps and or like cross sells / upsells, which are additional things you are going to sell to people, let's say after they buy your first thing. A very popular marketing funnel in the advertising space in the past like 5 years has been this, what we call like a low ticket. It's been called like a book funnel, even though it's not always a book that's being sold, where you sell something very inexpensive on the top. Might be a $5 book or ebook or digital course or templates bundle or something of that nature. And that's not actually where those people are making their money. That's just where that's their entry point in. After you buy those things, on the secondary and tertiary pages, you're seeing things like, upgrade to get like 20 more templates for the price of an extra $50. Upgrade to get our $100, editing software that we have special access to. And what they're really doing is making their money on those upsells and not actually making their money on the front end. The front end is effectively just like a lead-in, because then it's easier to click one button to upgrade a purchase than it is to re-enter all your payment details and for a $500 purchase, which it may be by the end. A lot of people in the services space actually use this just to generate leads. And then in the back, they'll say, hey, book a free call with our team and we'll give you a free assessment on your social media marketing strategy. And on those calls, they may say, hey, You have all these templates and stuff, but if you want, I'll give you a discount and I can just run your social media marketing and you can be one of our higher end clients. Normally it's $3,000 a month, but I'll do it for $2,000 since you already bought all this stuff. That's a very effective like type of strategy that works really well if you're a low ticket buyer and you already have those assets and if you have some money to test it out. Because it's going to take, weirdly, even though it's a cheaper thing, it's going to take you more money to test and validate it out because you've introduced more variables. So that's like the low ticket book funnel, mini course funnel strategy that works really well, but can take a lot of trial and error, a lot of expertise. I would probably advise you either hire a firm or hire some sort of like advisor, coach, course, something to walk you through it. But do know you're going to be spending a lot of energy and resources on it, and don't expect it to be like off to the races in in less than a year, unless you like hire a done for you agency or something like that. So that's like the low ticket strategy. The high ticket strategy is the one I typically would advise for most beginners. Now, what we would build for this is something that we would call a book a call funnel. Or a call funnel is what it's commonly called in like advertising circles. It has other names, right? But effectively what you're doing is you're calling out to your ideal customer via advertising and you're encouraging them or motivating them to book a call with you or somebody on your sales team to inquire about services. Like that's just it at its most simple, basic level. When I used to run gyms, we ran effectively a book a call funnel. We would say, hey, are you interested in losing weight? Come on in for a free one-on-one personal training session. And you'll get, a nutrition plan, you'll get a free workout class, and you'll get a full body scan. And we would have people opt in. They would book a call. Our team would call and book them to show up in the gym, and then they would enroll in services if they were a fit for them, and some of them wouldn't. I would say most of them actually wouldn't. You don't need most of them to convert if you're trying to get an effective paid advertising funnel. You just need a predictable amount to come through. So that's like a very basic small business version of it. In the B2B space, a lot of people will put some sort of what we call sales collateral on the front end so that you can educate and motivate your client to want to book a call with you. For something like a gym or even like a restaurant, just the prospect of going to one of those sounds fun, right? So it doesn't take as much compelling. But if you're selling like social media marketing services, you could just ask somebody to book a call. But now there's lots of other advertisers out there saying the same exact thing. What you might want to do instead is, hey, here's a free 20-minute training on how you can get all your social media marketing done in less than 3 hours per month. And I want to give you this training for free. By the end of the training, you're going to know exactly how to build a content calendar, exactly how to edit videos in 5 minutes or less, even if you've never edited before, and how you can get 2 to 3 customers every month by just using organic social media marketing. So that's a pretty irresistible like kind of offer, right? Like, oh, you just want me to watch a video for 15 minutes that's going to help me with all these problems I have? Okay, like you can have my email, name, and phone number. That sounds interesting, right? And so now you've created a lead, right? And you've also gotten somebody to now respond to your marketing campaign. Once you've given them that piece of sales collateral, that you can then invite them to book a discovery call, a social media audit, inquire about services, request a quote, request an estimate. You can position it however you want, but effectively, you're going to get them to book a call with you or somebody on your team to see about your services. After consuming a piece of content or sales collateral where you've compelled them that your solution is the best solution for them, maybe they now view you as a subject matter expert and they're like, you know what? This was all really helpful, but I don't want to do it myself. I'd rather just hire an expert to do it for me instead. And then you book those calls, walk them through a sales presentation or a discovery, and invite them to become customers. That is a much simpler funnel to get converting for a lot of reasons. The main reason being there's less variables. The second main reason is that the margin on it will be much higher, so you can afford more room for error. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you're running like a low ticket funnel, like we were talking about before, and let's say you get somebody, it costs you $20 to sell a $5 book. Well, you've gotten a buyer, but you've actually lost money on the low ticket funnel. So there's a lot more messing around that you have to do, either increasing the price, getting better at the ads placement, getting better at the actual ad copywriting and creative, creating back end sales that people want to take you up on, creating email nurtures. Like all those things need to be more dialed in to get it to work. Whereas if you just run a book a call style funnel, the higher ticket one, and let's say it costs you $200 to generate a call with a prospective customer, but the person who jumps on that phone call and buys is buying a $2,000 a month service. Well, there's a lot more margin, like it's profitable with one sale. You don't even have to close every sale that you, or every call that you get on. You can get away with 1 in 4, 1 in 5, 1 in 10 even, right? And it's now a break-even marketing campaign. And so typically I would advise, if you're in the services space, to start with a higher ticket funnel to start, because it's just less variables. It's a shorter path to like success. It's a shorter path to getting an ad campaign that's going to get you customers today. So if you're watching this video right now, you're in the B2B services space, you want to determine what is the right platform to start on and what is the right strategy. I've kind of spelled them both out for you, the pros and cons of both. And if you're asking me, a stranger online, what I would probably tell you is most of the time in the B2B services space, a meta ad and a high ticket book a call funnel is going to help you out. Like I said, like 90% of the time, that's the best solution for you, especially if you're a smaller budget and you're just starting out with paid ads. So there you have it. You have all the information you need so that you know when you should start a paid advertising campaign. We went over making sure you have capacity. We went over making sure you have the right methodology. We went over making sure you have the right budget. We went over testimonials and case studies and why they're important. And then we also went over where you should invest in terms of both platform and strategy. So your next steps are to go ahead, go through those 5 sections, make sure you kind of check the box on all of them, and determine where you want to start advertising for your business. I know it can feel like a lot if you're brand new in business, especially if you've never done it before. I can tell you right now is a golden age of advertising online for small businesses. There are so many people, myself included, who are able to take a small business and make it a medium, like more impressive, I would say, or bigger than most small businesses can ever get, and can really grow things. And there are people who have made their entire careers just figuring out these platforms and being able to plug it into their business. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you want a longer breakdown, or if you're like, hey, AJ, I'm interested in this stuff, I want you to show me how to build the ads part. Like, now I'm ready. I have determined after watching your video, AJ, that now is the time I am ready to start an advertising campaign. And you want more information about that, let me know in the comments below, and I will happily make another video about that. Also, if you're like, hey, AJ, I don't want to do it myself, I'd rather just hire you guys, there's links below to engage us for different things as well, okay? If you found this video helpful, please let me know. Hit like, please, come on. I'm begging. Just hit like. Also share this with somebody who you think it might be helpful, and subscribe if you want more B2B business development, marketing, and sales content. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.